Well, thank you all for being here today, and I'm very pleased to announce that earlier this morning we submitted our petition to the EPA for them to come and investigate whether the Tijuana River Valley should be declared a Superfund site. Thank you. So we submitted that with Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre, City Councilman from National City, Marcus Bush, Jack Hsu, the chair of the Air Pollution Control District, and over 500 residents who submitted their stories to share. And these are, thank you. These are people who fish, who surf, who hike, who swim in the Tijuana River and all up and down our beaches. And so we're very hopeful that we'll be able to get the EPA out here to investigate, to take water samples, to take soil samples, and to try to get to the bottom of what's happening, to see if there are any contaminants that might require a further and more aggressive approach from the EPA to tackle. So we know we have to continue fighting on this issue on every single possible front, and we're really hopeful that the Superfund designation could be a new avenue that could get us some of the relief and the help that we need. So with that, I'd love to turn over the floor to my good friend and a fierce fighter for clean water and clean air and healthy communities, Paloma Aguirre, the mayor of Imperial Beach. Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Today is a critical moment for our community, and I want to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, to APCD Board Chair Jack Hsu, and National City Council Member Marcus Bush for standing with us and joining this urgent call for action. Your leadership and unwavering commitment to environmental justice means the world to Imperial Beach and the entire South Bay. I also want to thank everybody who's joining us today. Also Mayor Ron Morrison from National City and Mayor Todd Gloria for supporting the petition for designation, and the over 300 petitioners who co-signed this. Your voices reflect the urgency, frustration, and fierce determination for this community to become secure once and for all, for our children to be able to breathe clean air, swim in safe waters, and live without fear of toxic exposure. This petition is not just a request, it is a demand. It is a collective cry for justice for families, workers, and community members who have endured for too long this condition. Every one of us here knows what's at stake. For almost 8 decades, the lower Tijuana River Valley has been drowning in toxic chemicals, industrial waste, and raw sewage. We've waited for decades of promises, and even today, the pollution keeps flowing, putting our health, our environment, and our economy at risk. This is more than an environmental crisis, it's an environmental injustice. The communities bearing the brunt of this disaster are primarily working class communities of color, neighborhoods that have historically been overlooked. Well, today we're saying loudly and clearly, we will no longer be ignored. We are asking the Environmental Protection Agency to investigate the Tijuana River Valley for designation as a Superfund site. This isn't about bureaucratic paperwork, it's about survival. A Superfund designation will unlock critical federal resources, expertise, and accountability to remove the toxic contaminants that have poisoned our soil, water, and air for generations. The data is irrefutable. Reports from U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, the International Boundary and Water Commission, and San Diego State University all tell us the same alarming truth. The riverbed is contaminated with carcinogens like PCBs and hexavalent chromium, dangerous pesticides like DDT, and heavy metals like lead and arsenic. And it's just not in the water. This pollution impacts the air we breathe and the soil beneath our feet, threatening the health of families, children, and workers across the South Bay. So let me be clear, we cannot afford to delay not even 1 day, much less 90, much less years. Every moment of inaction further endangers our community. The dry winds of the fall are already here, carrying toxic dust from the contaminated riverbed across our neighborhoods. The rains will also soon begin, stirring up these pollutants and flooding toxic waters into our streets and homes. Ranches, farmers, and community gardens near the river are at risk, and so are the endangered species at wetlands of the Tijuana River National Estuarine Research Reserve. And I'll just share with you all, a couple weeks ago at the Coastal Commission, we had a presentation with data that's been collected over the last 10 years from the Turner that is telling us that basically the estuary is dying. It's hypoxic, the dissolved oxygen is super high, the levels of fish are zero the last 2 years. And we know that the entire food chain depends on all of these organisms for sustenance. So it's not just about public health, it's also about the ecological integrity of the estuary. So again, I want to thank Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and everybody who co-signed this petition, everybody who's here today, including you all, the media. You all have supported in keeping this issue at the forefront, which is exactly what we need, because we need this we need this to be treated with the urgency it deserves, not just for the sake of the ecology of the estuary, but for the health of our families, which is extremely concerning. So with that, I also just want to tell the residents of Imperial Beach and South Bay that I see you, I hear you, and I stand with you, and we're not going to stop fighting for this. So with that, I want to introduce a good friend of mine, a leader in our community. He's been equally as vocal, Matt Henry, better known as IB Dad.
Well, thank you, Mayor P. This stuff really matters, okay? Like, it really does. I've got 6 kids. That's why they call me the Imperial Beach Dad. And it's scary. Like, it's real scary. We've been traveling, and we came home in the middle of the summer, and the kids couldn't breathe. If you've ever had a baby and they've had croup, they get this thing where they're like, and it's so scary. If you're a parent, you know, it's so scary. You got to carry them outside and try to get them some air. It's like, it's terrifying. And I have a 14-year-old, and they were all doing it. Like, woke up in the middle of the night, and we were in a panic. I'm like doom scrolling all night trying to figure out what are the right air purifiers to keep these guys safe. We ended up buying some and moving into our RV in the driveway because I felt like I could keep the air clean. Like, this is a really serious issue. When they talk about the animal life, we live right on the estuary. It's like a 2-minute walk, and our kids have been, you know, they've grown up here. One of them was born on Ivy Boulevard in the car on the way to the hospital. She's like, I want to be a beach baby. So these are as local kids as you can get. We would walk down to the estuary, and there's a little bridge right as you enter the estuary, and our kids have always called it the crab bridge because they love to just stand there and watch the crabs. And now we just have to call it the bridge. Like, there are no crabs left. So if the wildlife is dying, and it clearly is, then like, what if we're next? I have a compromised immune system, I'm fighting cancer, and I'm worried every night, like, am I doing the right thing as a dad living in my own home? It's a really scary thing. This is really serious stuff. And if you're hearing this and you're far away, I think it's just so easy to be like, oh, those entitled whiners, they live at the beach and sometimes it's smelly. Like, it's way worse than smelly. We're seeing things die. We're worried about our health. This is a really serious issue. And I know if the EPA comes in here and looks at it, they're gonna be like, oh, they were right. This is a serious issue. So we're really serious about this Superfund site. We really want the EPA to come in, look at this, confirm what's going on, and then get involved. We're in the middle of like a protected estuary, but even more than that, it's all of our families, it's our health that's at risk. So thank you very much. I'm going to introduce, our councilman candidate, Miss Laura.
Good morning. First, I want to acknowledge our Vice Chair, Terra Lawson-Remer, for her courage here, Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre for her continued courage here, and our elected officials, Marcus Bush and Jack Shue, who are coming out in support of us today. The city of Coronado has also been engulfed in this environmental disaster. Our beaches that you see here are beautiful beaches where 2 million tourists come a year, have been closed for 2 summers in a row. This is getting worse, not better, and we need to pull every lever of government that we can to change this. I want to thank all of our community members who are behind us, many Coronado leaders behind me who are coming out to make it clear that Coronado is in this fight too. It is our environment, it is our economy, it is our tourism economy, and it is the health and well-being of our families who can no longer come to the beaches safely, can no longer come and surf, and we want to find out what's in our water, what's in the sand, and what these pollutants are doing to us and how to clean them up. We believe firmly that the EPA should be on the ground right now in the Tijuana River Valley. It's a disaster. We know that anecdotally, and science is proving it at every turn. Thank you very much for coming today and for your attention to this.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you all so much for being here, and we can now take questions.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yep.
So how soon will you know if the EPA is going to grant you the Superfund?
They have to acknowledge receipt fairly quickly. I think it's within 30 days. But then they have a while. They come out. They do all the tests. So then they do a desk assessment. They say, okay, we got this. They do a desk assessment. Once they do a desk assessment, then they decide, does this rise to the level of coming and doing a site inspection? So the reason we put so much effort into gathering people's testimonies and 500 people putting their stories out is we want to make sure the EPA takes this seriously and actually comes out here and tests the soil. Once they come out, it'll take a while because then they have to take all the soil samples. They take more than 400 samples of looking for different kinds of contaminants. They look at trajectories of how those contaminants may or may not be impacting ecosystems and neighborhoods. So there's a lot of analysis. Once that's done, then it's scored. And a score is created, and if a certain score is reached, then it's suggested to the governor, to Governor Newsom, to make this a Superfund designation. Once it's designated as a Superfund site, then we have to go out and get the money to come here and use the Superfund fund, the about $52 billion that's set aside on a federal level, to actually clean it up and to do the decontamination. So it's quite a long process, which is why I think for myself and everyone here, we're just trying to push forward with such urgency because we know that it's going to take a while. So we can't let any step linger or delay because just inherently it takes a long time to gather that data. Yeah.
Terra, the County Board of Supervisors delayed essentially requests, the EPA request and Superfund. How come you move forward?
I move forward because, I've been speaking for a long time to, my good friends and partners like Jack Shue and Paloma Aguirre and Marcus Bush and so many people that said, look, we don't want to wait. Hopefully the board will come along with us, and I think that they probably will. They think they wanted to look at the issue a little bit kind of more holistically, but my personal belief is we couldn't wait. This is far too urgent. It is a environmental justice crisis in addition to it being just a straight up environmental catastrophe, and we have to move with real urgency to tackle this.
Can you speak to, obviously we cover stories, Imperial Beach, but this really affecting Coronado and your district?
Absolutely. So I represent most of the coastline of San Diego County, from Carlsbad to Coronado, Point Loma and La Jolla and Encinitas and Ocean Beach and Coronado. And this is a huge issue for Coronado businesses, for Coronado residents. But it's not only an issue for Coronado, although certainly the day-to-day impact is being felt most acutely by Coronado. But I'm getting reports really all the way up the coastline of people concerned about potential infections that they think may be related to water quality. I'm a big surfer, and lots of folks in my district surf and spend time in the ocean. And this is an issue that impacts our entire coastline. It's a huge coastal issue. But I go a step further. It's not just an issue that impacts my district as the coastal district and Imperial Beach and National City. It impacts all of San Diego. San Diego County, what makes San Diego County such a special place is our beaches, is our coastlines, is our ecosystem, is our natural environment, as well as our relationship, our binational relationship with Mexico. And so the Tijuana River Valley is a jewel of our region. It's a regional treasure, and our beaches and coastlines are regional treasures. And so I can guarantee you that when you talk to people who live, I don't care where they live in San Diego, they could live in Santee, they could live in Claremont, they could live in Alpine, and they want to come to the beach, this is an issue for them too.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I'll just add something. So I represent the San Diego Coast on the Coastal Commission, and I just want to remind everybody what the Vice Chair just mentioned is absolutely true. There's been studies that have shown that stranded dolphins all throughout the San Diego coast that have been found died. They died from sepsis. They died from sepsis from a bacterium that can be traced back to wastewater, specifically emanating from the Tijuana River. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the ecological integrity of the estuary is at peril. That's also an ecological connection to all the marine protected areas along the state, which is almost 500,000 acres of marine protected areas. You can absolutely, if one link in the chain breaks, everything else will be affected. So it's not just affecting public health, but it's also affecting the ecology and the ecosystems of the entire Southern California coast.
And Laura just reminded me of an important point, thank you, that this issue also impacts our military preparedness. It impacts our Navy SEALs that train right here. And this has implications not just for the health of our armed services and our men and women in uniform, but really for the preparedness of our military. So there's also larger national security implications that I think are really important to keep in mind.